responsibilities of entrepreneurship to consumers: to supply a better good quality of products, to provide after-sales services in the basis of nature of products, to provide a good information about the products. Like for example, they have a consumers who wants to buy their products. They need to be responsible to provide a good quality, good services, and good information about the products. Kung hindi sila responsible sa pagpo-provide, magkakaroon sila ng accountability or pananagutan sa mga consumers. Dahil maaaring magkaroon ng mga side effect ng consumers dahil sa kanilang product dahil hindi sila naging responsible. Maaari silang ireklamo ng consumers at maaaring masira yung kanilang products at hindi na ito maibenta. Basic fairness of entrepreneurs to consumers. It means they need to be fair and equal to their consumers. Maraming issue ngayon na hindi nagiging fair yung mga nagbibenta sa mga consumers nila. Like for example, may dalawang consumers na gustong bumili ng same products. Yung isa, hindi kaayang-ayang tingnan, mukhang wala siyang pera. Yung isa naman, mukhang maraming pera. So, ito naman nagbibenta, ginudge niya by physical appearance, so hindi niya binentahan ito. Dahil hindi niya binentahan ito, isang consumers, maaaring itong consumer na to, maaaring niyang siraan o gawa ng kwento yung products nila. So, kailangan meron tayong fairness sa mga consumer para hindi rin masira ang ating product. Personal and customer relations of entrepreneurships to consumers. It means ito yung may good relationships between companies and consumers. Ito yung in-encourage ng companies na magbigay ng support and feedback ang mga consumers para tangkilikin ang kanilang product at mas kilala. At ang mga companies naman, mga personnel, binibigyan nila ng good quality, good services, and good information ng mga consumers. Distribution dilemmas of entrepreneurships to consumers. It means they sell a worse product to consumers to make them own profit. Frauding consumers. Ito yung pandaraya ng consumers na nagiging cause ng pagkalugi ng business. Like for example, si consumers bumili ng cellphone. Ayos naman ito nung napag-usapan nila pero binalik niya ito dahil may sira daw kahit wala naman. So, na-scam yung nagbebenta ng cellphone at maaaring malugi yung negosyo niya. Unfair competition of entrepreneurships to consumers. Ito yung unfair competition ng mga companies. At dahil, syempre, may mga siraan dito na nagaganap sa mga products nila dahil sa unfair competition, naapektuhan ng mga consumers na bibigyan sila ng mga hindi maayos na products, ng mga hindi maayos na products dahil sa mga unfair competition sa mga companies. Unfair communication of entrepreneurs to consumers. Means ito yung hindi maayos na nakikipag-communicate sa consumers. Like for example, maraming consumers sa medicine stores and then may isang bumibili doon na hindi nagbigay yung maayos na information about sa medicine na binili niya dahil nga maraming nagpo-consume ng medicine. So, anong nangyari? Hindi maayos yung pakikipag-communicate.
Distribution dilemma in general public, an ethical dilemma paradox, o dilemma. Sa moral ay isang problem in the decisions pagitan ng two possible options, neither of which is absolutely acceptable mula sa ethical perspective. Some example of ethical dilemma. Example include taking credit para sa ibang trabaho. Nag-aalok ng isang client na kung saan ang isang product for your own profit. Utilizing inside knowledge para sa own profit. Fraud. In general public and law fraud o pandaraya ay isang intentional deception to secure unfair or unlawful gain to deprive a victim ng isang legal right. Example, theft o pagnanakaw is at skimming, removal, and selling inventory, cash, consumable, or information. Fraudulent acceptance and kabayaran ng isang nag-uulat ng mga transaksyon. Unfair competition in general public from jurisprudence ang hindi patas na competition has been defined as the passing of or palming of the attempting to pass off upon the public of the goods or business ng isang tao as the goods or business of another with the end and probable effect to devising the public. Example, face advertising, bait and switch or lumipat sa pagbebenta ng transaksyon ng hindi authorized. Substitution of one brand of goods para sa isang paggamit ng confidential information by former employee to solicit consumer. Non-respect of agreement in general public. The most common problem with the non-call agreement is that if they are not reasonable as defined on the case-by-case basis, maaari silang maituring ng mga trade restrictions. Examples, doctor-patient confidentiality physician, patient privilege, attorney-client privilege, priest-penitent privilege. Unfair communication in general public. Communication used to determine the relation of encourage social immortality ng publikunan ay hindi ethical. The exact information of this depend on this ethic system ng iyong kultura or culture, ngunit ang karamihan sa mga tao ay agree na ang communication sa ethical ay bumubuo ng positive relationship, while an unethical communication impairs them. Example, diagorism including in both written and non-written forms of communication breaking confidentially and manipulation of information. Environmental degradation in general public. Environmental degradation is the deterioration of the environment through depletion of resources such as quality ng hangin, tubig at lupa, ang pagsira ng ecosystem. Environmental degradation ng kapaligiran ay isang proses na kung saan nakokompromiso ang natural environment is compromise in some way, reducing biological at pangkalahatang kalusugan ng kapaligiran. Example, degradation of soil quality from poor farming practices, excessive use of fertilizer and pesticides, leakage from fields. Contractualization in general public. A practice of hiring worker para sa isang pagsasali ng para sa isang short time before terminating them. Worker under this from or an agreement are laid off or transferred to companies before the period expires. Example of contractualize. Employees are security guards, the principal or the real employer hires the security guards through the security agency.
The consumer. Responsibility consumer against unfair trade parties. Consumer should insist on getting all the information about the product or service before making a choice or decision. Accountabilities to the other stakeholders concern the relationship between an organization, company, or corporation, its stakeholders, and how accountable and its relationship is interpreted to be by all parties. Basic fairness in other stakeholders. Stakeholders theory has become a central issue in the literature or business ethics, business and society. There are, however, a number of problems with stakeholders. Theory has currently understood personal and consumer relation in other stakeholders. Consumer relationship management is a method used by a company to keep, maintain, and harmonious interaction with his current clients and buildings. Distribution dilemmas and other stakeholders. Employees make better decisions in less time with business ethics as a guiding principle. This increases productive and overall employee morale. Found and other stakeholders. Stakeholders as a party that has an interest as a company and the ether effect or the affected by the business primary. Stakeholders is assessed in a stakeholders in a typical corporation if and its investor, employee, or consumer.
Hello everyone, this is my report. Unfair competition in other stakeholders. Unfair competition is when a certain seller would do something advantageous by using unfair, wrong, and fraudulent business practices to deceive buyers or customers in order to acquire larger amount of money in return. These kind of sellers do various types of methods in order to get their aims. The examples of unfair competitions are trademark infringement. It is when a competitor uses your logo in their own advertising. Stealing a competitor's trade secrets or confidential information is another example. For example, stealing a competitor's secret burger recipe and using it for monetary gain. A violation of a trade dress is also an example of unfair competition. It is when a competitor's physical appearance of a product is copied. Unfair competition can take a variety of forms: false advertising, unauthorized substitution, below-cost selling, and many more. Unfair competition is using illegal, deceptive, and fraudulent selling practices that harms other businesses. It draws attention away from a business or occurs a false information about a company. How can you avoid unfair competition? You can avoid unfair competition by avoiding making false claims about products, avoid illegal selling methods, and avoid misleading your consumer's price, quality, and value. Because the consumer have the right to expect that a business will not mislead or deceive them. Unfair communication in other stakeholders. Unfair communication is spreading rumors, talking behind someone's back, plagiarism, and manipulation of information are the examples of unfair communication. Communication is one of the most important things in business, and communicating with ethics usually involves the following principles. Honesty is the main principle of ethical communication. It's the act of communicating a message in a clear, truthful way. Any attempt to massage or sugarcoat the information is not ethical communication. Responsibility. As the sender of a message, you are responsible for the way the message is received. You need to make sure that the receiver don't take the message the wrong way. Unfair communication destroys the relationship in the organization. It can be frustrating to the employees, creating a breeding ground of distrust and confusion. All businesses, big and small, can be negatively impacted by the frequent conflicts caused by miscommunication. You can avoid unfair communication by being consistent and constant. Being accessible. Being accessible to your employees, say that you care about their concerns and want to hear their feedback. This type of accessibility can make the possibility of miscommunication less likely in your small business. Non-respect of agreements in other stakeholders. Stakeholder agreement means a contract or an arrangement or understanding between the stakeholder and the company. The most prevalent issue with non-co agreement is that they cannot be constructed as trade restrictions if they are not reasonable. In other words, the agreement prevents someone from doing business in an improper manner. The findings show that many social observers feel that all areas of society, particularly companies, are becoming increasingly unethical. Fair play and fair trade must be reintegrated into the economy, and ethical management must apply to the day-to-day operations of the firms. Environmental degradation in other stakeholders. Environmental degradation is the field dedicated to understanding human responsibilities with regard to the natural environment. Customers, shareholders, employees, and communities with an interest in a company's strategies and growth plans are referred to as stakeholders. Stakeholders in environmental and conservation planning typically include government officials, businesses, scientists, landowners, and local users of natural resources. Companies reduce hazardous emissions in response to demand from important stakeholders on the environment. Improving environmental performance has been shown to have a favorable impact on financial performance and competitiveness. One of the best ways to promote environmental ethics in society is to first become educated. Business owners and employees can promote environmental ethics issues by stepping up to initiate greener practices. Contractualization in other stakeholders. The practice of hiring employees who would render services under contract is referred to as contractualization. Their services are usually available for a limited time, usually a few months. This system that has many businesses, including large corporations, have implemented and used. This arrangement is frequently used by these businesses to keep their revenue stable. Workers under this form of an agreement are laid off or are transferred to other companies before the period expires. This way, it becomes almost impossible for them to file claims for regularization. Some argue that contractualization is harmful because it employs workers in a variety of ways. Employees, for example, have no say about their rights in this situation because the employer can fire them at any time. And some argue that contractualization is beneficial because it improves the economy's long-term position.